everyone, and welcome to, and thanks Holly for inviting me to come and do a little presentation for you guys today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Colleen from the flower shop here in town, downtown. So yes, you can come and see me and buy some flowers anytime. And today we're going to go over Bouquet Basics. So it's not a workshop like when you book a workshop with me and make something yourself and take it home. This is more of you kind of watching and learning something, and then you can, go home and try it or come and see me another time for a workshop. But Holly has some little tiny bits here that I have some flowers that you guys can put little things in, just so you can practice your cutting and whatnot. Practice a little bit what you've learned tonight. I have these handy dandy little cards that we include now with all of our orders, that if you guys just want to take one and pass it along, it just gives you pretty much what I'm telling you, so you don't have to take notes or watch a recording of me later, because it's all right there. So yeah, take one of those, stick it on your fridge, and then maybe your partner will remember to buy you flowers more often if you're not going to buy them yourself. Be like Miley, buy your own flowers. So that's what we're going to go over, is just pretty basic floral care. So when you get a bouquet from me or from the grocery store, or you grow flowers in your garden and your little cutting garden, these are the things that you're going to do to look after your flowers. So we're going to go through the process of receiving a bouquet, and I'm just going to kind of go over containers and the appropriate use of containers and tools. So if you have any questions before we start, now's a good time to ask them. Otherwise, here we go. So container choice is really important with your flowers. So this is obviously a really big, beautiful Valentine bouquet. So it's a lot of flowers, and so a bigger choice of vessel is important. But you can make really beautiful things with a small amount of flowers in tiny containers, right? Things like bud vases or mason jars work well, but remember that the size of the opening is what counts more so than how big the container is. So if you have a lot of flowers, you need a bigger opening, as opposed to if you have fewer flowers, a smaller opening, right? So this guy, can hold, surprisingly, and I'll show you, quite a few flowers, but it can also hold not very many flowers depending on how long the stems are, right? So container choice is really important. Tool choice is also really important. My tool of choice is a very sharp knife. So at home, everyone probably has a paring knife, something that you would use if you were to hand peel potatoes or carrots, or cut an apple with. So you don't want to use anything serrated, because serrated they'll kind of chew up your stems, right? So a nice sharp knife with a straight edge is a great tool. If you're uncomfortable cutting flowers with a sharp knife, you can certainly use scissors or clippers. So these are probably your standard scissors at home. They cut paper, they cut plastic, they cut everything. I'm not a big fan personally of using scissors, but if this is all you have, I do want you to cut your flowers always before you arrange them in your container. But so scissors are another choice. Clippers, like what you would use to cut branches in your garden, or your winter greenery if you're making little winter sort of things. These are really nice sharp tools that do the trick as well. But most people don't have these unless you have a garden or a yard to work in. But these are great tools. And these are little, they're technically called corsage snips. So they have both a straight bit as well as a little jagged bit, so that you have multiple surfaces for cutting. This is kind of a specialized floral tool that, if you have your heart set on, working with these types of things, I can certainly order you a pair, but this is a handy tool to have. And my personal favorite, we call these the Japanesies, because they are made in Japan. They're a hardcore metal, super sharp tool that does eventually kind of like they break and they wear on, but they work well and they are like ergonomically made for your hands and the type of work we do. They are on the heavier side, so if you don't have strong hands and wrists, probably not the best tool, but this is my personal favorite when I'm working with a variety of different stems because it cuts everything really well. You know, for softer or more delicate stems, definitely a knife is the way to go, and I'm going to show you why. So you're getting a bouquet from the flower shop, or the grocery store, or wherever you get it from, or you're getting stems from your garden. And this is generally how it's going to come to you. It's going to come to you wrapped in some way, and that's generally to protect the flowers, right? So yes, this is a pretty wrap because this is meant to be a gift. But if you come, let's say, to the flower shop and buy something for yourself, or you come to Bloom Bar where you just get a couple of little stems, we'll generally wrap your flowers in paper because it can be recycled, less waste, right? But this is a pretty wrap, and this is a waterproof paper with some tissue. And when you get your flowers, you're going to want to unwrap them. And I recommend you just leave them in the wrap that they've come in so that you don't make a big mess all over your counter or your table or wherever you're going to do it. So grocery store flowers will often come with an elastic on them because they've been either, you know, like machine wrapped or like a process wrap. So they're in a wholesaler or whatever, and there's one person who literally just sits there and wraps up flowers and drops them in a plastic thing. So if you Google it, you'll see how flowers are wrapped when they're in a big processing center. When you get them from us, they usually come with this wax twine, which, yes, this is arranged and looks very beautiful as is. And if you have the perfect size container, you can simply just cut the stems, because we will cut the stems all to one length. And so as long as you cut the stems on an angle so that the stems can drink, and leave them all at one length if you have the perfect size container, right? So perfect size container means the stem length is the same length as the container here. So if you cut them all, and then they can all go into the container, ready to go, right? It's arranged, it looks beautiful, ready to go. But most of the time that doesn't happen. Most of the time you guys don't have the perfect container. So this is why we always, as florists, offer you something arranged, right? So that all this part is done for you. So the basic floral care of cutting the stems so that the flowers will take up water. So when they have a fresh cut, they start to drink again, and that's how they last longer. But if you would like to arrange them in a container that is suitable for your space, so whether it's, you know, a centerpiece for your table, or you're going to take the bouquet apart to put it in smaller jars all over your house, however that looks, you're going to want to cut this elastic or this little wired twine or wax twine and lay your flowers down so that the flowers can all come apart. So if it comes to you, it looks perfect, you have the perfect container, great. Snip the stems, fill your container, your clean container, make sure it is like hospital clean, no joke, like get the bottle brush in there, get it clean, nothing, no germs, nothing in here. If it's dishwasher safe, I recommend it goes through the dishwasher because then it's super clean, right? Like what you would eat off of. Clean cold water. I am not an advocate of flower food. I know some florists are, but it's a personal choice. I find that when we send home the packages, people don't know how to mix it properly, and so sometimes you put too much for a small amount of flowers, or you forget to change the water, and just bacteria grows. So I'm not a big advocate of it. I'm a big advocate of cutting the stems and changing the water. So that's my feeling about it. So no flower food. So you've got your beautiful bouquet here, and the way I would take it apart is I would have all of your greenery kind of in one little pile. So when you come and order flowers, usually they come with greenery and, you know, focal flowers plus filler flowers. So I would separate this up just so you know what you're working with. I will certainly give you the names of flowers if you're interested, but I won't overwhelm you with it. So you've got all these different types of flowers here. And then you would choose your container accordingly. So I'm going to go with this guy because I know this goes nicely in here. It's super clean. I washed it before I came. I'm going to put some fresh water in it so that I'm not trying to fill it up with water after I've arranged my flowers in it. And then you would start the process of adding your flowers. So everything gets a fresh cut before it goes into water. And you will always want to make sure that none of the bits are long enough that they would fall into the water, because that causes the water to go bad more quickly. So all these little things are pulled off so they don't fall, things are trimmed, and then you start the process of arranging your flowers accordingly. Now, this part of it is, I mean, it's skill and it's practice, right? So when you're doing it on your own, I recommend that's what you do, right? You literally practice. And if you cut something, always leave things a little bit long because you can always cut them shorter. I wouldn't worry too much about how it looks in the beginning if you're new to it, because it takes years, guys. Like, I've been doing this for years, right? So you're not gonna, off your first bouquet, you're gonna, boom. You're gonna have to practice, you're gonna have to play with it, but that's the fun part about being creative, right? Or working with flowers and getting to make beautiful things, right? So cutting things and inserting them to ensure that your stems are all in the water. So you're shooting to leave the stems long enough that they are in the water so that everything's drinking. And so what I'm doing here is I'm using the greenery to create like a little grid, which is a support, right, for the flowers. There's other ways of doing that. So these are called little pillows, and they're plastic. And I wouldn't refer to them as a single-use plastic like Oasis. So, you know, that green foam. We try not to use it unless we have to, depending on, you know, the use, the purpose for it. Things like this are a lot better because they can be reused. So this is a great little grid. So instead of using the greenery and, you know, hoping the flowers are all supported, you can use something like this that holds all the stems in place, and they come in. If you get an arrangement, they come with them usually, and that's where it says on there that if, you know, there's something with an armature, this is what we mean. So the flowers would all be arranged in this. This would lift up, so the arrangement would all stay in place. You literally just cut all the stems, wash your container out, fill it up with clean water, and put it back down. So another way, without, you know, having a little plastic pillow, is simply chicken wire. So this is something that most people have, and if you don't have it, you can get it quite easily. This is a coated chicken wire that is just a little bit easier on our hands because we work with it quite a bit, especially with, you know, large scale installations. But this is just a coated chicken wire that you just literally ball it up, stick it in, and it does the same thing, right? So really inexpensive, really easy to get and use, and you simply cut and insert your flowers and they just stay in place for you. So generally, when we design, we don't want to see any of these things. So you want to make sure that you have enough flowers to cover that. So if you were using something like this, you'd have to make sure that your flowers were short enough that it covered all of this, because you don't want to see the mechanics. So that's just the one trick about that. Whereas with this, there's nothing to hide or cover, right? Because it's just the greenery. So back to playing with this, you know, you just want to make sure that all of your little stems and bits are pulled off so that nothing is, you know, rotting in the water. And again, that's just going to take practice as you work on it. But it will come, and you can just insert. And then I would go to kind of the bigger flowers. So like this is a protea, and he's got a really big head and a really thick, stocky, woody stem. So I would take him in next because he's kind of a statement piece. And then I've got a beautiful dendrobium orchid here. He would come, depending on the style of the arrangement you're going for. Save some of the greenery to the end. This is hyacinth. which continues to grow. So all those spring bulb flowers, like tulips and hyacinth, they continue growing even after they've been taken out of the ground. So they're definitely ones you want to cut shorter because it'll grow and it'll flop over and then it'll die because it breaks. This is a little beautiful Moon Series carnation. And when you're, designing or working on things, you can turn them around. You've got a little lazy Susan at home. Stems like this can easily be broken down. So again, depending on the size of your container, this is what I've got for you guys to do a little play with, because that's gone from a great big stem like that in a bouquet, a cut bouquet, that works well, but not in something that only has this much space. So it gets, the little breaks get broken off, and then everything gets cut, always gets cut before it goes into water so it drinks. Let's show you for reference. This is stock. It smells so good. Some Lysianthus, which as you can see here has got lots of breaks on it, so it's nice to break it down. Make sure you always cut the ends. So that one piece has now been broken down and can, so you're like very few stems and already you've got something really lovely, right? And again with the Lysianthus. So even if it doesn't have a bloom on it, it still is pretty and offers interest, right? So I tend to use most things. This little guy in here. And then these are some beautiful quicksand roses. And I'll teach you guys a little trick that if you're on Pinterest or Instagram, what's really fun is reflexing the petals on the roses. So that's literally just taking them and folding them over, and then it gives them that really beautiful garden rose look. I don't know if you guys are that keen into flowers, but it's really popular with weddings because it makes the rose look like blown right open, right, and beautiful. And it's really that simple. Like you literally just fold them over. And now they've, they look so beautiful, right? So that's something you can do gently. That's nice and big. Another fun thing to do with roses is just leave them full length. Give it a little twirl, and you've blown it right open there too. Right? Look at this, so cute. Cut them down to a nice bud vase length. All right. And yes, I know I made it look insanely easy, but that is years and years, people. And when you come do a workshop with me, trust me, it takes 2 hours to get you all here. But that's how simple it is with practice and time. And then if you're tidy, like it all goes nicely into your packaging. And then it can either go in the compost or however you deal with your waste. And then you have your bouquet into an arrangement, just like that. Or, again, into several little small vessels, or like this kind of works as a centerpiece, although I, clearly kind of made it more one-sided than the other. So this would sit nicely on, your hutch in your dining room or on your dresser or whatever. So you see all the beautiful flowers. But if you were to make a centerpiece for Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter or whatever, so you would design it all the way around so that everyone at the table can see all the way around. Again, it could have gone nicely into this if the stems were just cut short and dropped in. That would have worked well too. Or else, little pieces could have been made into several arrangements, right? So put along your dining room table, or put one in the bathroom, one in the bedroom, all over the house. So that is Bouquet Basics. There is some